Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name's Rory Paquette. I know you know that. Folks, I just want to say thank you to everybody. When we made the move to 7 days a week content, everybody thought I was crazy. I thought I was crazy. But you know who didn't think I was crazy? You folks. And you just stepped up. And if you're not out there doing everything you're doing, listening, sharing, subscribing, sending me all those awesome DMs, and I will get to every one of you guys, I promise. I promise. I'm going to get to every one of them that hasn't been read yet. It's all coming from me. But when I made those moves, you folks really showed up. And if you're not out there doing what you're doing, I don't get to sit here and do what I'm doing. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, you all know what time it is. If you're a friend of the program, you know we got to pay a couple bills. So let's take a sip of our preferred beverage. Oh my goodness, good stuff. Just made a new hot cup of that right there. And what are we drinking? That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean bean. It's a fantastic cup of joe. They do all the right things for all the right reasons. And they support veterans, which is incredibly important to us here at the Power Man. You guys all know that. If you're a veteran out there, folks, uh, please accept our thanks to you and your family for your service. We love you, and we're glad that you have found a home here at the Power Man Podcast. Folks, check them out. Freedom Hill Coffee online, at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Tell them Power Man sent you. Let me get one more sip of this so I can keep up with this powerful young guy I have across the table from me. All right, there we go. All right, please welcome to the show. Online health and fitness coach. See, I wasn't kidding. Powerful dude. He's also an author and he's a podcast host. Please welcome Allan Misner. Allan, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Rory, and I'm 59, so I wouldn't necessarily say young guy, but I'm probably older than you.
Only by a little bit, only by like a smidge. So I thought you were younger than me, man. You're in much better shape than I am. So good job.
Well, it comes with the job.
Comes with the job. All right, we'll go with that. All right, Allan, I know we got a lot we can dig into, especially for our audience today. Can't wait to hear what's going on with you and your story and everything you have happening. Give everybody an idea. Who is Allan Misner? What are you about? What got you into all this?
Okay, well, I wasn't all this back then. I was fit and really, really super fit when I was younger. I was the athlete. I was all that. But when I got older, I got into my career, and that became my sole focus. I wasn't focused on my health. I wasn't focused on my fitness. I wasn't focused on the relationships. And so I found myself at 39 years old, which should have been the happiest time of my life. I had just made C-suite of a Fortune 500 company at 39 years old. That was the dream, right? That's exactly what I was supposed to have done, and I did it. But it was empty. I felt terrible. I was unhealthy, out of shape, sick, and miserable. And my relationships were crap, and nothing else in my life was worth a damn. Um, so I took a vacation to Mexico. And when I got down there, the place had a timeshare. I literally just walked in, checked into my room, went downstairs, and walked up to the appointment and bought a timeshare. Because what I realized was I had not taken a vacation in 3 years. And I mean, literally had worked through every single vacation. And I was like, okay, if I pay for this, I'll do it. At least 1 week every year, I'll come down and sit on this beach. And so I went upstairs, I bought the timeshare, and then I came down and I was looking, and they had the event schedule, and volleyball was on the event schedule. I'm like, oh, great, sand volleyball. I haven't played in years, but I used to love that sport. I used to play competitively. And so I'm like, okay, I'll get out there and I'll play a little bit of sand volleyball. This will be good. And so I got out there. I didn't quite make it through a whole game. I mean, I was literally at the end of the game gasping for breath, very close to having them call an ambulance.
Wow.
I'm a guy, so I didn't. Ego over intelligence.
Right.
Uh, and so, um, but the next morning I'm sitting there on the beach and I'm just thinking to myself, and you may have to bleep my language here, but I literally just call myself a fat bastard. And I actually own the domain name fatbastard.org. If you click on that, it's going to
No
take you to
kidding.
my
All right.
website. No kidding. I felt terrible about myself, and that was the internal dialogue that I had going on. And he was mean. He's really really mean. So I said, okay, well, I got to fix this. I got to turn this around. But of course, I just paid for an all inclusive resort. So I spent the rest of the week drinking my butt off. Um, but I was going to start on Monday, kind of that thing.
Right.
And I did start on Monday, but motivation waned, and I didn't make it very far. But I kept pushing. I kept pushing for 8 years. I would try and fail, try and fail, try and fail. And I mean, sometimes I'd make good ground, but then I would just drift right back. And so 8 years later, I found myself in a hotel room in Malaysia. I was working, and I was there, and I was hungover, and I got on a phone call with my daughter. And at this point, she's a 20-year-old woman. She's a level one CrossFit coach, super super fit. Everything I was at her age. If CrossFit had been around when I was that age, absolutely I would have been a CrossFit athlete, no doubt whatsoever. Um, then she said something that really broke me. And she said, Daddy, would you watch me do a CrossFit competition? And those words just hit me in the gut because I never saw myself as a spectator in my daughter's life. I had always
Oh,
expected to be a participant. And it was in that moment that I realized, okay, I didn't know the words. Some of the stuff, I'm saying now is like after thinking about it over and over, what was I feeling? What was really going on? But I can tell you the feeling was she didn't really respect me and I didn't really respect me. And it was earned lack of respect. I mean,
yeah.
if you will. And so it was like she should be asking me to compete with her. Would you come and compete in the CrossFit competition with me? But she couldn't ask that question because I wasn't able to do that type of thing, not even close. So after I got off that call, I was thinking, okay, I got to start doing this different. And I started doing some research and trying to figure out, okay, I need some help. I can't do this on my own. I've tried on my own for 8 years, and yes, I suck at this. But I was committed because it was like now I have a why, and I have somewhat of a vision. I want to be an athlete that my daughter respects. I want to be able to walk out on the volleyball court and play until the sun sets. You know, no lights is the only reason I want to stop. That would be it. I would play until until no one else wanted to play. Um, so that's the kind of thing I wanted, but I didn't have the tools. So I started looking. Podcasts were still kind of new, but I was listening to them. And so I was looking for podcasts. There were no podcasts for people over 40 in fitness, not a one. I started looking for books because I'm a prolific reader, and there were no books. There was stretching and chair yoga. Okay, so you go
Wow.
from being a 20, 30-year-old athlete that does CrossFit and all these other crazy things, or you're an invalid.
Pretty much.
That's it. You're ready for the convalescent home. Let's do some stretching
Yeah.
and some chair yoga. Okay. No. And so I was like, that's not going to move the needle. I need something, but there was nothing. And I traveled so much for work that I couldn't really hire a trainer. So I was like, I've got to do something. So I got certified. I just said, okay, if I can't hire the coach, I will be the coach. And so I got certified with the National Academy of Sports Medicine. I went on to do their corrective exercise specialty, their fitness nutrition specialty. I went to the FIA, which is the Functional Aging Special Institute, and got their functional aging certification. So all the things I needed to train myself. And so I started on the process, and I went through all that pretty quickly.
Okay.
Absorbed the material, took the test, got certified, and then around around March, I realized that from a mindset perspective, I was spinning my wheels again, and it just occurred to me at that moment that I needed something big and audacious and scary in front of me, something that would hold me accountable to train every day, to eat right every day. And so I called my daughter up and I said, "Hey, there's a Tough Mudder in Florida, Tampa, Florida in November. Do you want to do it with me?" And she didn't hesitate. So she's like, "Yes." And so I'm like, "Okay, cool." Hung up the phone, literally booked the tickets right then. The airline tickets, the event tickets, the hotel rooms, all of it booked, money spent. And so I'm like, "Okay, I'm pot committed. I
Yep.
got to do this." And so from that perspective, what happened was, because I had that big scary thing in front of me, that cannot fail thing, and I was now committed, because that was the thing that had been missing before. Because I asked myself that morning when we had that phone call, and she asked me to watch her in that competition. I did watch her in that competition. I'm not a terrible dad. Didn't want to, but I did. Anyway, she, I just knew that morning that the thing that, guys, I asked myself, I said, I've done hard things before. I've done a lot of hard things, really, really hard things. You know, you're not an infantry soldier in a ranger unit if you can't do hard things. You don't pass the CPA exam the first time if you don't do hard things. So I've done hard things. You don't make it to the C-suite at 39 years old of a Fortune 500 company. You don't do that unless you do hard things. And so I was like, I've done hard things. Why is this harder? Why is losing weight and getting in shape harder? And that's when it occurred to me, it's not harder. The difference is you're not approaching it the way you did those other things.
Okay.
When I did those other things, I was fanatical. There was no fail. There was all on. This is it. Complete focus. So I said, okay, that's what I need to do this. Complete focus. And so, working through all the motivation problems I had, working through all the mindset things I had, I did it. I managed to lose 66 pounds of fat, put on 11 pounds of muscle. And then I
Wow.
went out there and completed a Tough Mudder with my CrossFit level one coach daughter. And my one challenge to myself was, I don't want to slow her down. I don't want to send her on. I want to finish the race on her terms. And we did.
Nice.
And
Tough
and
Mudders are
so
not easy.
they are not easy.
No.
And so we funny story is, okay, so one of the next to the last obstacle is electrics. Okay, so they've got this ditch, this hole that they've filled with water. So it's really muddy and it's a bunch of water, and there's rows in it. So it's like easy to trip over and fall while just even running through it. And then there's all these wires hanging that they're running electricity through. And so we come upon this group of guys. They're all in their, of course, most of them are in their 20s and 30s, and they're all standing there looking at this obstacle with trepidation. And I see why as we start getting closer. This guy's running straight up to it. He hits the wire and falls face first. And his immediate reaction is to try to jump straight back up, and he gets hit again. He gets down again. Okay, so they're terrified. They're just terrified. And my daughter and I are running up on him. She says, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Just run around them." She's like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, you go that way, I'll go this way." And we run around them. And we come back on the other side. And before we get to the obstacle, I grab her hand and we run through. And that was hitting us, but it didn't knock us down.
Yeah.
And we got all the way through. Okay. It's not that she and I have superpowers, it's just that I understand electricity pretty well. And so when two people are holding hands, you're displacing the electricity amongst the two of you. So we had so we had more mass. I know those guys weren't going to hold hands and run through there, but that said, if you ever do something like that, hold someone's hands and you'll displace the
Wow.
electricity and make it easier to get through that obstacle. Anyway, so I figured that out kind of on the fly. But the thing was, then we finished the race with me holding her hand.
Cool.
Now
Really cool.
there's three events. That's one of them. There's three events that are so special in my life that I will never forget. The first one was the day she was born. They took her over to the warming table and they're cleaning her up, and I reach over and she grabs my pinky. Okay, the second one was that Tough Mudder, and the third one was 4 years later, walking her down the aisle. And here's what I know: if she we had not had that phone call where she asked me to watch her do a CrossFit competition, I probably wouldn't have been there for the last two.
Hmm. Wow. Those little moments, they seem small until they're
Yeah,
not.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge,
Because
man.
they
It
grow
really is.
up, they grow up, they get married,
Yeah,
and then they have their own babies and their own family and their own thing.
for sure.
So cherish those moments.
She your only child?
Well, yes, but I've remarried and she has three, so we have
Ah,
four.
okay. You got some bonus babies. That's cool. Right on.
Well, they're not babies. They're like the youngest is like 32. So
Right on. Okay. I'm an empty nester myself, so I totally understand. Three kids and they're all grown, they're all gone. And, when the last one leaves, all you think about are moments like what you're talking about.
yeah.
So I totally get it. Yeah, 100%. I
But
mean,
there's more of them
66
out
pounds is
there.
huge.
There's more of them out there. More of those moments. If we take the time and we take care of ourselves, there's a lot more moments out there.
Yeah. Well, you
We
got to
just need
be
to
here
be
for them,
around
right?
for them. Yes, we just need to be around for them.
That's right.
That's the key.
I mean, I love that 66 pounds is not nothing. I mean, that's a
No, it's not.
heck
It's
of an
not nothing.
accomplishment.
It was well. It was. It took 11 months of steady work, a lot of work. Um, but of course, what happens is you lose that kind of weight. Someone's looking at a picture. They remember you from March, and now they're looking in November at a picture, and you're not the same man, not even close.
Right.
Okay, and so I've got friends asking me what I did. How? How? What
Right.
did you? I said, well, it's not easy, but it's not that hard. Okay. And I didn't want anyone else to have to do what I did because I don't think anyone else would. No one else is that crazy to go out and pay for all these certifications and spend hours and hours in a textbook and then take the tests. And
Right.
no one's going to do that except for this guy. So I thought, well, okay, there's still no podcasts for people over 40. There's still no books. There's no one talking about this. So I told some of my friends, I said, I'll go ahead and train you. And then I want you to be on my podcast as a part of the training. Now, I was also very, very ambitious about the podcast. So I was going to do 5 episodes a week. I had a full time job and, still working C suite stuff. But
Wow.
I went ahead and launched, and I had 5 episodes that turned out to be a little bit too much. So I've tapped it back down over time to once a week. But I launched the 40 Plus Fitness podcast in 2015. And I've been going strong ever since. And then when I got laid off in 2017, I decided to go ahead and write a book. And so now there's the Wellness Roadmap. And what I do on the podcast that's a little different than most podcasts
Okay.
is I actually read their book beforehand. So, like, literally, when I'm talking to them, I know their book probably better than they do at this point
Yeah.
because they wrote it a year ago and then it gets released. And so they've forgotten a lot of what they put into the book. But I read the book and I make sure we get really good content, really good information that you can apply in your life every day, right there on the podcast. And so each podcast is deep enough to give you something to act on today. The guests, of course, love that I've read their book because that's kind of rare in this industry. But I think it adds more value to the show, and I think it shows respect for the folks that will come on my podcast that I care enough to understand their story, understand what they are talking about, and so it allows me to really dive in deep. And at this point, with over 700 episodes, I've probably read about 500 health and fitness books over the last 10 years. Um, so there's a lot in my noggin, and I've been able to kind of culminate those things into actionable ideas that I use with people that I train every day.
Nice. Nice. It's one heck of a story. 8 years in the making.
Yeah, well,
That
eight
story.
years of success equals failure. Um,
Right.
you know,
Right.
it's funny when you're going through something that like just is so aggravating or discouraging or terrible, becomes a funny story. I've got a lot of those.
Now, when you put the podcast out, I mean, that was you said 2015, was that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's you were before you were out in front of the podcast movement. I mean everything blew up, of course,
Really, I
during
mean, I
COVID,
guess
but back then, my
podcast
goodness.
technically came out Adam Carolla in 2007, I believe. So podcasts have been around for a while, and there were health and fitness podcasts that were coming out around that, earlier.
Sure.
So I didn't feel like I was that far ahead of the curve, but I knew that most of the people listening to podcasts were not 40 years old, but I knew that they would eventually be listening to podcasts, because the medium is just so rich, and the opportunity to learn and to enjoy is always there. So whatever topic you're interested in, there's probably a podcast, or at least a podcast episode out there that can provide you some good information and push you over to a resource that can go even deeper.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially today. There's a million podcasts out there, so several million actually. But
Yeah, yeah. There's yeah,
yeah,
thousands and thousands coming out every day, but most of them don't last, because this is not easy.
no,
Don't
no,
try this at home, kids.
right.
This takes dedication, and most people go in with enough energy to make it through about 15 episodes, and then they pod fade.
Yep. That's why that first barrier of 20 episodes is so huge
Yeah,
for folks. You make it past that, you got a shot. You got a shot at sticking around. But
yeah. And no
yeah,
one's
for
going to
sure.
find you before you have that many anyway. So
No, you're doing it for yourself. I'm in this for me, so to speak,
I'm
at that point.
glad. I'm glad I didn't have that many listeners, because I was terrible.
Now, are those still up? Are those episodes still
They
up?
are. They are. Yeah,
There you
you're
go.
gonna have a hard time finding them, because of course, Apple and all that, they only list like the last 300, and some places only have the last 100. So you'd have to go to probably to my podcast website to find that episode, but
Yeah. Yeah, because
don't
you have
look.
what, you told me 713 episodes?
Yeah, 713 will go live this next Tuesday.
I mean, yeah, that no platform's going to host all those in one shot unless it's yours. So I totally
Yeah.
understand.
Well, it's hosted. It's hosted. It's just the other players aren't going to let you have that many on to be downloaded. So,
Right.
most of them only download a handful anyway, uh, and then once you listen to those, they'll download more. But
Yeah,
don't want to
100%.
fill your don't want to fill your phone up with too much, Alan.
The wellness roadmap. So is that your personal journey then into that wellness roadmap?
It is part journal, I guess you could
Hmm.
say. It does chronicle my story a bit. It walks you through some of the thought process for what I use. So it's broken into three parts. The first part is the GPS, and I use a lot of car analogies to this thing.
Okay.
But the GPS is basically where you're getting your commitment together, you're setting some basic goals, and then you're just trying to become more self-aware. Because what happens for most people in this journey is that they don't realize that trying to get in shape is about changing yourself, and change is the hardest thing for a human being to do. Our bodies are just drawn to sameness because there's safety in sameness.
Right.
So change is hard by design. And so you have to figure out some things about yourself, and you have to set certain things up, or you're just not going to be successful. Then The middle is streets. And basically, this is where I walk you through some of the actionable things that you'll do to make sure that you're successful. So I talk a little bit about exercise. I talk about, food, and I talk about, training, and just all the different things that you'll need to do to be able to get yourself moving forward. And then I include something in the book that I think a lot of coaches will leave out, or someone would leave out, is what do you do after you get there? So
Hmm.
it's not like a finish line. It's not like, ooh, I'm in shape, great.
Right.
You have to to keep doing something. So this is the cargo section, and you do want to celebrate. Be excited and happy. Crossing that finish line. That was my celebration. That was my reward for what I was after. That feeling that I get to have forever. Nobody gets to take that from me.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was my celebration. But then you've got to kind of reassess who you are because you're different. You changed. You can't have different things without being different. And so if you did these things and now you are someone else, then now you need to reacclimate. People probably treat you different than they did, you know,
Yeah.
and it's not all good.
That's
Some
true too.
people are jealous. Some people are jealous that you were able to do it and they weren't. And they
Right.
want you to
Yeah.
go back to being the fat bastard, you know?
Well, it makes them feel better about what they're not doing, right?
Probably, but
Yeah.
again, it's just you have to get yourself set. You have to change some things about your life so that this is easier to keep going forward, and then go. So reset your goals and go. And so for certain types of people, it's really important to have that big goal.
Sure.
And if you are that kind of person, I was at this point, have a big goal, have something in front of you that you're working toward. That way, you feel accomplished each and every day you do the thing you're doing.
Nice. You mentioned nutrition, eating plan, that type of thing. Do you have a particular plan that you endorse or a way of whether it's calories or
in
macros or
in the
anything
in
else?
the
Or
in the book I did, and that was only because of how well it worked for me. I started out very much paleo
hmm,
because the one thing I did know that was that I also needed some help. So I did set up an appointment with a nutritionist to come up with an eating plan to start, and I started with paleo. Now I'm someone who actually just I'm okay with bland. I'm okay with kind of just eating the same thing most of the time. So I ended up pretty much eating meat and vegetables almost every day,
okay.
almost every meal. So because it was paleo, there was no bread, there's no beans, there's none of that, no noodles, no rice, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
So what you're left with is meat and vegetables. And so I was eating meat and vegetables. Well, my metabolism shifted and I got into ketosis. And ketosis worked very well for me.
Hmm,
And, my energy system worked fine. I was able to do a Tough Mudder without eating or taking any nutrition for the 3.5 hours I was doing it because I was very efficient at using what my body had on it. It still had adequate adequate energy sources.
sure.
Even after that weight loss, I still had plenty of energy to do what I wanted to do. So that worked for me. But having coached, at this point over thousands of people um, in 10 years, it doesn't work for everybody. It's not the right way for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
so everybody's got to find a thing. So now I lean more toward a was it alive statement. Okay. There is no Twinkie tree. Cookies don't grow on bushes. And so if it's in a box, bag, jar, or can, it's always going to be suspect to me. If it has a label, it's always going to be suspect. If there's an advertisement for it, it's always going to be suspect for me.
Gotcha.
So I'm after real food, which means it was alive at one point as a plant or an animal or byproduct of the animal, and less of the byproduct of the animal than the animal itself.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay.
And so it's that kind of basis with most folks. And I can tell you, if No one's ever gotten fat eating meat and vegetables. You cannot.
Hard to go wrong. Yeah, right.
You cannot. You cannot eat enough meat or eat enough vegetables or eat enough fish to get heavy. It's not possible.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
if you're getting adequate protein and you're lifting weights heavy, you're training properly, you can put on muscle mass. So you can gain weight eating that way, but you can't get fat. That's just not going to happen eating that
sure.
way.
One of the things you have, in your bio that I read was, you're about helping people over 40 to, lose weight
Yes.
and get fit and that type of thing. What are some of the points, the differences that have to be considered for folks that are over 40 as opposed to not?
Well, number one, you're not that young guy you think you are. Okay.
Yeah, there you
You
go.
know, like I said, I was a super athlete, and so I always had a tendency to push myself hard. When I was in my 20s and early 30s, that was never a problem because I could push myself hard and I recovered quickly and I'm good. When you're over 40, you don't recover as well, and you don't handle the stress of that work as well. So I'll tell you this story. I was because I traveled so much, I was sitting home one weekend. I was only home for about one weekend a month. So, about 90% travel. And I was home one weekend and there was an infomercial on. I don't even know if they still have infomercials on television because I don't watch much television
I don't
anymore.
either. Yeah.
But I was sitting there watching television on Sunday morning or something, and there was an infomercial for Beachbody for the Insanity workout with Sean T. And Sean T, if you don't know who this guy is, he is so charismatic and energetic and just the nicest guy. He's someone you'd want to meet because you just know he would just fire you up.
Yeah.
And for the workouts, it looked like, I mean, it looked fun. It looked, and they didn't need equipment. I'm like, that's perfect. When I'm traveling, I don't have to worry about if there's a good gym. I can still get these workouts done in my room. People might not be happy about me jumping around like they are in my hotel room, but okay, get the workout done.
Right.
And so I bought the workout set. And then the next time I was home and it was there, I went in and I recorded all of them to this iPad. I'm ready to go, right? So I was to travel again on Tuesday. So I'm like, okay, I'll do the benchmark workout on Sunday. I'll plan on taking Monday and Tuesday off, and then I'll start the workouts on Wednesday when I get where I was going. And I do the benchmark workout, and he's like, okay, you got to push yourself really hard and da 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 da. So I'm pushing myself, push, push, push. I do the workout, I make it through, and I'm like, okay, this is good. I've got something to go on, and then and so the next morning I woke up, and I felt like someone had beat me with a baseball bat all night.
Ooh,
I was so sore, it hurt to breathe. It hurt to reach over and grab my phone off the nightstand because I had to call off work.
wow.
The
Holy
late
cow.
onset muscle soreness was so bad, and this wasn't even 24 hours later. I couldn't get out of bed,
Hmm.
and so I didn't do a single one of those workouts. Not a one. And so when I turned in that iPad to even watched any of them, had not even tried any of them. And so, you're going to take longer to recover. You need to go slow. I was suffering from a mindset thing that I call rear windshield. And what's happened is a lot of folks, whether you were in really good shape in the past, you still today might see yourself as that person. Like I was seeing myself as the super athlete in the rearview mirror. You may see yourself, okay, I was the fat kid that nobody would pick for the sports for the team, and you still see yourself that way. You have to recognize what you've done, where you're looking. You're in this seat right here, this driver's seat right here behind this driver's wheel, and there's the windshield. So if you want to go forward towards what your vision is for a better you, you've got to look out that windshield.
Hmm.
So for much of the 8 years, that was a big fundamental problem I had. I was starting where I was instead of where I used to be instead of where I am today. And that kept breaking me. That kept making it harder.
Wow.
And I just wasn't getting where I needed to be. So when you're older and you're trying to train, you have to be realistic. You just need a little bit of stimulus above what you can do today so your muscles will get stronger. But that's one of the beautiful things about the human body. It is the greatest gift in the world.
Mm.
There is nothing like it.
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to think about you live in a machine, a biological machine that can heal itself. If you give it what it needs, it can get better, it can get stronger,
Yeah.
and it can look better. Okay. So that's magic. There's not another machine out there that can do that. Not a single one that can
Nice.
do it. Your car can't do that. Airplanes can't do that. Even the most technologically advanced things out there can't make themselves better, can't heal themselves.
True story.
We
Yeah.
can. We can. And so you just need a little bit more, and you'll get stronger. You need
Nice.
to eat better, and you'll lose weight. And you keep doing those things consistently, and you'll get the results you want.
I love that. As an online health and fitness coach, then how do you work with people?
Okay. I Similar to this, we
Hmm.
have Zoom calls.
Right.
I'll get on a Zoom call and we'll talk about your goals. We'll talk about your life. We'll talk about your limitations. We'll talk about all of it, and then we'll come up with a plan. And we'll start on that plan. I have an app that I use that lets me put all your workouts in there, track any and all habits that you want. It pairs with all kinds of different devices. So whatever you're tracking, whatever you're using, be it the Fitbit, the MyFitnessPal, the Oral, all those things pair with this. So I have a dashboard basically I see of how you're doing and what you're doing. So I can hold you accountable and I can give you the guidance. And so every 2 to 3 weeks, we get back on the phone and we talk about what's working, what's not, and then we
Excellent.
adjust it. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want you to perpetually need me as a coach. I want you to develop the self efficacy so that you can be what you need to be. Now, it's always going to be good to have accountability,
Sure.
and then you're going to develop the self efficacy over time. So it's those two things that you're working towards. Start with the accountability and then work up that self efficacy. And the cool thing when you do all of this right is that you begin to identify as a different person, a person that's healthier, more fit. And when that happens, you now have unlimited motivation. You cannot fail.
Nice. Nice. I love everywhere you're coming from on this right now. So, you're speaking from a voice of complete authenticity because you've lived it. You've done it. You've been
Thank
there. Yeah. So
Yes, it's
it
not
gives
an
you
easy.
instant
It's
credibility.
not hard, but it's not easy. It's not easy,
Right.
but it's not hard. So but if you but you've got to get the mindset stuff right, and I think that's where, when you're talking about a fitness coach, going into a gym and there's a coach there. I mean, a trainer. They're great for that purpose of having someone there to write your program and to keep you accountable and for those workouts, and then load plates and unload plates and count reps. Okay, I can do all of that online except load and unload plates and count reps. I can't walk with you and knock food out of your hand. Okay, so you're still going to have to do the work, but I'm there to provide the guidance, support, and accountability to keep you on track while you build the self efficacy and begin to be the person you're supposed to be.
Nice. All right, Alan, I love it. Um, I still have another question or two for you, but as we
Okay.
start to wrap this up, let everybody know how they can reach you because I want to make sure I don't miss that or forget that. How can everybody
Yeah.
reach you, get a hold of you, find your stuff?
So the podcast is 40 Plus Fitness,
Mhm.
and you can find that right where you're listening to this one. So as soon as you finish this episode, flip on over, subscribe. catch a couple there. You give them 7 weeks, so they've got plenty to listen to. But if you want one more, I got one for you. One comes out once a week, okay, on Tuesdays. But lots of good content out there. That's 40 Plus Fitness. And then I have my website is 40plusfitness.com. That's 40PLUSFITNESS.com. And it's, yeah, I had to spell out the plus because you can't use symbols. But
Right.
online, you'll see it's 40 with the plus sign podcast. That's fundamental difference. But you can't do symbols in a URL. So
Right.
you had to spell out the plus.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Love that. As we, kind of pull this together here, again, I love what you're doing, and you've put the stuff out there in, like I said, a very authentic way. Um, the credibility that comes along with that has to feel good because when you're talking to somebody, and they're like, "Oh, I have this problem. This is what's keeping me." You actually, when you say, "Hey, I get it. I've been there," you actually have been there, and not
Yeah.
everybody can say that.
Yeah. And then I've worked with lots of other people, and we're all unique. So we're all going to have our own unique spin to a problem. Um, but none of us are unicorns. We're not the special little thing we think we are.
Right.
There's some similarities between us. We're human. Um, Consistency is a similarity. If you're consistent with something, you'll get those results.
Nice.
Okay. If you surround yourself with the right peers, so everybody thinks peer pressure is a bad thing, right? You hear the term peer pressure, you'd be like, ooh, that's only if you have bad peers. Okay. If you've got good peers, peer pressure is wonderful. Okay. So just pick your peers. And then you have the accountability to hold you there. Um,
All right. And so, Alan, listen, as we wrap things up here a little bit, I just want to kind of leave it to you, give you the floor for the last moment or two, and just say this, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to make sure we get out there? Is there anything you wanted to double down on that we did talk about? Or, hey, is there a parting thought that, and you just came back?
yeah.
And we lost Alan there for a minute, but Alan, like I was saying, I want to give you a chance to kind of wrap up here. So, is there anything that I didn't ask you, anything you want to double down on, or some final thoughts you want to leave with folks? Anything like that? Go for it. The floor is yours for the next last minute or two here, brother.
Well, a lot of people, a lot of the advice you'll see out there is good but not great. And one of the big things that I see a lot of coaches say is that you need to just find something you enjoy and do that. And I would say, okay, that's okay advice, but it's not great advice. The reality is you got to think about who you want to be in the future. And if you're not training yourself to be that person, you're letting yourself age out of it. So my
Mm,
grandfather lost golf when he was 80. And everybody's like, because he couldn't swing the club anymore. And a lot of people say, well, he's 80, right? So you got to give it up. He lived until he was 95. So the last 15 years of his life, he didn't get to do the thing he loved the most. And I'd like to say that's the worst part of it. But as he got older, it got worse. He couldn't
right.
make it to the bathroom in time. And he had to call the desk, the people at the, because he lived in assisted care, to come clean him up because he couldn't do that either. So think about the things you want. We talked earlier about the moments that you want in your life. My grandson was just born this year. Okay. I'm going to be 90 years old by the time he probably gets married. I want to be there. Okay. So if I want to be there, I got to do a lot of things right to make it into my 90s, healthy and fit, so I can travel and be where I need to be. So when you're looking at exercise, when you're looking at fitness in general, you want to think about the tasks and the things that you'll need to be able to do now and in the future, and the things you'll want to do now in the future, and train for those. Be strong, have stamina, be mobile, have balance. Those take work. And if we don't do something to keep them, we lose them. And so you're giving up moments, special moments in your life by not doing the right thing now. So get started now, but have a direction, have a reason, have a why, and have a vision of who you need to be later this year, next year, and the next, and on and on and on, and train to be that person and always be training to be that person.
Nice. Nice. Powerful words, Alan. I appreciate that. And I think they're going to get through to some guys who are listening to this for sure. And congrats on being a grandfather.
Thank you.
That's the best. I'm waiting,
Another
waiting for
special,
mine, man.
yeah, another special moment, you know. She waited till she was in her 30s. So, I'm nearly 60 at this point. So again, he's going to be old. I mean, I'm going to be old in all comparison to as a grandfather because most of the time, the generations were only 20 years apart when I was younger. Generation before me were 20 years apart.
Yeah,
I had my daughter in my mid 20s. Well, she's now, in her 30s having her first kid. Our other daughter hasn't had a kid. Our two boys haven't had kids themselves, and they're all in their 30s, in the ranges of 30s. So it's, they're older and older having kids. That's going to stretch that out, meaning, well, I got to do a little bit more work.
exactly right.
I want to be there.
100%. I love it. I really do. Alan, thanks for all the
Yeah.
great advice.
A
Thanks for sharing everything you did.
participant, not a spectator.
Yep. Absolutely, man. Brother, I love it. I love the message and appreciate you coming on here to share it. So, um, we have Alan Misner, uh, the online health and fitness coach, host of the podcast 40 Plus Fitness, and author of the Wellness Roadmap. Alan, thanks for sharing, telling everybody your story, and for just bringing everything you did today. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Roy. I appreciate it.
You got it. Folks, that's been another awesome episode of the Power Man podcast, where we bring you these powerful men with these powerful messages because we are united in wanting you to find your power so that you can be a better protector, better provider, better leader tomorrow than you are today, so that you can be a better father, better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you matter, because you have value, and because you're worth it. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Till next time.